Hi everyone, me again. I have a lot to share with you today, and as you can tell, we're in a completely different environment. This episode is called Second Chances, and the reason for that, and the reason why we haven't been doing more episodes, which I apologize, but it was completely out of my hands. You're not going to believe this. But on February 4th, I had emergency surgery for a brain tumor on the right side of my brain, I guess. And I'm a miracle because it's been 4 weeks and 1 day since the surgery happened. And one of the reasons why I felt like I wanted to share this with you is I'm really touched by the community that we've created with our YouTube channel. We are unique breed. We have an extreme passion for fashion and history, because so much of it is integrated. And I just wanted to share with you all my commitment to communicating, and that it is this passion that has made me get out of bed, put some makeup on, and communicate with you all. I'm not going out of the house right now. I'm not driving. I have probably another 2 weeks of physical and occupational therapy. I'm not saying this to get any sympathy comments. Just know that I'm a kick-ass woman and that I'm determined to get back to the place I was before the tumor was removed. So I'm so grateful for you all. So on that happy note, I want to tell you why we're doing this episode in my home, not only because I can't go out, but also because so many of you have commented on wondering what my home looks like, what my closet looks like. And I thought I would share with you the part of my home that makes my heart skip a beat, because there's so many beautiful treasures in here. I started hoarding, for lack of a better word. Yes, I admit I'm a hoarder. Things maybe, I would say maybe 12 years ago, shortly after I moved down to LA. And part of the reason was there were pieces that I way overpaid, and I just couldn't not buy. And the other part were there were pieces in the store that were fairly priced that weren't selling. And it was like, okay, if it's not selling, I'm taking it. So eventually it just kept going and going and going. And here I am with a bedroom filled with the most incredible treasures. A large amount of it is 20s, well, Edwardian 20s and 30s lame. And that means garments, coats, evening gowns, dresses, but also the most magnificent appliques and threads and bullion tassels and just beautiful things that for one person to have as much as I do, I feel really blessed and grateful. So on that happy note, what do I want to show you within my inspiration room? And I thought, well, why not show you guys the things that I love that I would like to reintroduce to you and to designers, because I think that the designs are still relevant. Now, I'm going to start with something very unusual. It's a piece that's actually looks like it's 1930s. It's beautiful mixture of patterns. It's a chiffon and it's a wrap dress, but it's not vintage. And I will say that Nicole Farhi was the designer. The pieces of Nicole Farhi that I've seen in the past have not necessarily been pieces I've responded to. But this particular piece blows my mind, because not only is the construction beautiful, it's a wrap dress, but the finish is beautiful, the choice of materials is beautiful, and I'll twist this thing around so you can see. It's a wrap, and it's got this wonderful movement and flounce. So, and all the seams on the inside are French seams, which is fantastic. So there's no possibility of the separation of seams happening. I love this dress, and maybe you guys will get some inspiration out of it as well. The pieces are contoured. It goes straight down and then it gets bigger on the end, which is why it has so much volume. So start with something that's not so old. I buy things really that inspire me because they're created beautifully, or because they're vintage and they just knock my socks off. So on that happy note, we are going to look at this beautiful 1920s teddy. The piecing on this is magnificent. I have a ton of lace and a ton of fabric, and I thought, you know, I'd love to be able to either replicate this piece or use it as a basis for something that I can draw off of later on. And then I pulled this just because it's beautiful, and it's not necessarily a piece that I will draw off of, although I think the skirt detail is pretty magnificent. It's with beautiful handmade tape lace, a Battenberg kind of tape lace, and it's in gorgeous condition. It has just a little bit of damage in this area, but I pulled it because it's like, I don't know where it fits in my bag of tricks in this room, but it's great. Then along the lines of the 1920s, I only have the front of this dress, but if you look at how the circular ruching is done, but it doesn't ruin the flow of the bust and the skirt. I don't know how they did that. It's a piece that I really feel that circle ruching can be used in other areas in a very creative and interesting way. And actually, I would like to eventually make this a wearable dress because it's pretty wonderful. You know, you can see how it moves. And it's bordered with this panne velvet that has like 8 rows of top stitching. So, love this. We have one of the most beautiful blouses I've ever had the pleasure to own. Probably late 30s to like 1942-ish. It is a symphony of beautiful music because the fabric that they use here, the lighter colored fabric, is shattering. And I want to show you an example of what shattering is in an extreme way. But they applique this gorgeous Chantilly lace on the bodice, and then the cuffs and the bottom part of the blouse is pleated. And it looks like it's itsy bitsy, but it actually stretches. So it could fit various sizes. And I think it's because of the georgette that they used on the bottom, but I'm not 100% sure. It's just a really sexy but tastefully sexy piece. If you know paisleys, Victorian paisleys, they oftentimes have a ton of moth holes, but mostly in the black part of it. So the border tends to be in really good shape for whatever reason. And this really inspired me to utilize the trim, the paisley trim that I have from the Victorian era, and create this magnificent bell-sleeved, handkerchief-pointed jacket, and then trim it with whatever. I'm not that keen on the sequins that they used on this one, but the jet beading around the neckline is fantastic. So, I mean, can you see wearing this today as a relevant piece? I totally can. And a standout piece as well. And then, who doesn't love bias cut, but it's a pain in the neck to do. This great late, I would say this is probably 1928 to 32. It's silk chiffon with cotton-based lace. What I love about this is, if you're familiar with the bias cut, the contour of the darts, which is so flattering around the butt, and these panels here are just a good example of placement, strategic placement, because it looks like it's there for decoration, when in fact it's really there strategically to show off the female form. And once I repair this, I totally see selling this either to Mr. John Galliano because he loves the bias cut, or to a bride. You know, I am happy to sell it to either of those people. I'm only going to show you on the hanger because I can't figure out what how it works, but I'm really inspired by, it's a blouse by a very famous French couturier named, excuse me, I want to pull the label out, French couturier named Dricot. What's unusual about this piece is, number one, it's complicated, which you don't really see that in this time period. So we'll do an after photo so you can see what it looks like, and we'll steam it so it'll look better. But this kind of black silk taffeta from this time period typically shatters. I mean, it literally disintegrates. And this fabric feels like it was bought yesterday. So it has a long life ahead of itself. And the detail is ruching within the trim that they top stitch. Two of my all-time favorites. This Edwardian lace alternating with a silk bodice, jacket, whatever you want to call it. I think because it has this in the back that it was during the bustle period, although this is backwards, so let me just fix that. But I'm not 100% sure. I'm pretty sure this was probably 1880s. But look at how incredible the design is, and just the simple element of ruching gives a texture and an element that you don't normally see. I think this may have been a bridal piece because it looks like the lace is a bow. So part of what we do, what we enjoy, is being a CSI for textiles and clothing. And unfortunately, with my business, I haven't had a lot of time to do the research and investigation that I really enjoy doing. Like when I did the research for the Sonia Delaunay cloche. That was totally a 10 on a scale of 1 to 10. But something like this would be pretty easy to figure out where it came from, time period wise, but still relevant. And then this other piece, which is truly one of my all-time favorites, early 20s, late teens, early 20s. It is something I could see Stevie Nicks wearing back in her day, right? But it's got this beautiful pieced French lame and then actual black chiffon, put just beautifully. The design on it is beautiful. It has a kind of similar, I love these piecing together of fabrics where you have gaps of color or so much pattern. So I think when I start designing, that's kind of going to be my wheelhouse. What was great about this also is it's cracked now, but it had this magnificent jet buckle bordering with what looks like paste. So, and beautifully finished with French seams on the ends. I mean, I could continue praising my love for this piece, but I will move on. You'll see me wearing this one day. And then the last thing that I actually pulled as far as inspiration is this magnificent, I needed to tack this shoulder, which I didn't have time to do, but it's a cut steel, which typically was made in France, bodice with cut steel this is the front, cut steel buckles. And don't you love how a simple tiny velvet trim is connected with the zigzagging of the cut steel, and then a wider trim, which there's 3 different gauges of this beautiful silk velvet trim, and then integrated with these cut steel elements. I just see this working in contemporary fashion in so many ways. And yeah, this is one of my favorites. I'm sure you can tell why, right? These 5 cubicles are things that I segregated from the collection that's in the cubes because I like looking at them and seeing what I can come up with. Okay, so I kept this because you can see in its original form how incredible this teddy was. But unfortunately, as you can also see, the silk is disintegrating, and that's what we call shatter. It can happen because of food that spilled on a garment that they didn't clean properly, and it may be acid-based, and eventually, through time, it eats away at the fabric. It could happen because of the dyes that were used or perspiration. The black taffeta that I mentioned earlier with the dracole, oftentimes that shatters because of the dyes. So, I mean, it's sad to see a piece like this, but it's not completely dead because you can replace the shattered fabric with fresh. And I like to try and find something as close to the original as possible. So you can also, I should tell you a trick, when I buy silks, mostly, organzas are the worst. I look at the piece, put it up to the light, and oftentimes you can actually see a streak of light coming through the garment, which is an indication that it's beginning to rot. You know, little pinholes, no, those are usually because of a bug. But a straight line where the fold was, or not even where the fold was, you should check for that if you're buying vintage in stores or flea markets or whatever. And that is a dead giveaway that you're not going to have a long life with that piece. And then I also wanted to show you, I put this on top. You know, this is a total non sequitur from what we've been covering, but if you've seen my other episodes, you know that I'm a lover of repurposing and upcycling. I haven't been to a place where I need to do that yet, because thankfully I found wonderful pieces over time, and two of the auction houses I used to frequent are no longer in business, so I won't be having the thousands of pieces a year that I have in the past, but it's fine. I need to slow down. I just had my 67th birthday, which is a shockaroo to me and probably to you too. But after this brain trauma, it's really made me stop and think about what I'm doing with my time and what I want to do in the future. So one of the things I really, really, really want to do is to make beautiful things by upcycling. And this is a superbly adorable 1960s dress that was put together with just two patterns, not if you don't count the bow. I don't know when this was made, but whoever made it did a really good job. And it's a girl size, but I just, you know, creativity that people have. You guys, if you have creativity sitting, steeping in your body, you've got to express it, because it's really important. It's really therapeutic, and who knows where it's going to take you. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know it was quite a bit different than what we usually do, but there's like so many incredible things in this space that I would love to share with you. So definitely let us know if this is something that you feel is congruous with what we've been doing up to now. And I want to thank all of you, all 50,000 plus of you, for subscribing and for your really gracious and wonderful comments. We really are learning along the way, and Mike has done an incredible job with his editing and directing and coming up with some awesome topics for us to cover. So I want to tell you, for this episode in particular, in the description that's part of the beginning, we will be announcing who the $500 gift card winner is, the subscriber that gets it. So make sure you check to see if it's you. And lastly, I want to say my gratitude to the medical community at Cedars-Sinai and my post rehabilitation center. It has been a real kick in the butt, and I'm not happy about the circumstances, but as I said to my family and friends, it was the best of a shitty situation. So for that, I'm grateful. And remember, follow your bliss. Joseph Campbell said that years ago in a TV series that he did on PBS. But follow your bliss, because doors magically open when you do that.